Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about something that many of us struggle to understand, something that, while often invisible, has a deep and lasting impact on our lives. The paradox that your kindness can sometimes lead to disrespect. It's a truth that many people overlook or dismiss, but the more we examine it, the clearer it becomes. We live in a world that values strength, assertiveness, and self-preservation, yet kindness, which is supposed to elevate human interaction, can sometimes become a weakness that others exploit. Understanding this paradox is not only essential for self-preservation, but for cultivating healthier, more meaningful relationships. In this speech, I will delve deep into why kindness, when misunderstood, can be seen as a vulnerability, why it might be taken for granted, and how it can inadvertently open the door for disrespect. But I also want to explore how we can balance kindness with strength, ensuring that our goodwill doesn't make us targets, but rather empowers us in our interactions. The first key issue we need to address is the fine line between kindness and weakness. Society has conditioned us to believe that kindness is a sign of fragility, something that can be exploited or dismissed. While kindness is inherently a strength, in a world where competition and power dynamics often rule, being too kind can inadvertently make you seem weak. People often mistake the willingness to help others for a lack of self-respect or assertiveness. When kindness is misinterpreted as an inability to stand up for oneself, people can start to take advantage of it, leading to feelings of disrespect. This dynamic is rooted in the way we value power. We live in a culture that worships strength and dominance, equating assertiveness with leadership and confidence. When you show kindness, you might be perceived as someone who doesn't care about asserting their own needs or boundaries, which can be mistaken for an inability to navigate difficult situations. In such instances, your willingness to offer assistance without expecting anything in return could be interpreted as a lack of self-respect. The result? You might find people taking advantage of your kindness rather than acknowledging it as a virtue. The reality, however, is that kindness requires immense strength. It takes inner fortitude to be kind in a world that often feels chaotic and unforgiving. Kindness demands patience, empathy, and the courage to see the good in others. Even unfortunately, this strength isn't always recognized, and kindness is often misunderstood. This creates the paradox where being kind might make people disrespect you because they associate it with weakness, rather than the complex strength it actually takes to be consistently kind. What makes matters worse is that when others sense what they perceive as weakness, they may start testing boundaries. They push limits, take advantage of your willingness to give, and begin to disrespect you without realizing that their behavior is actually harming the very thing they should value. By not seeing the strength behind your actions, they begin to take your generosity for granted, expecting more and more without giving back. This is why it's crucial to strike a balance between kindness and self-respect. Kindness does not mean allowing others to walk all over you or accept treatment that undermines your dignity. Being kind does not necessitate being a doormat. True kindness recognizes the need for boundaries, for mutual respect, and for self-care. Without these elements, kindness can easily be exploited, and the very people you help may turn into the ones who disrespect you. In navigating this fine line, it's essential to remember that the act of being kind doesn't mean that you lose your voice or sense of self. It's possible to be kind without sacrificing your needs or tolerating disrespect. It's a matter of cultivating the strength to say no when necessary and to assert yourself in a way that reinforces your kindness, rather than allowing others to take advantage of it. By recognizing the difference between kindness and weakness, you protect both your emotional well-being and the integrity of your relationships. In the end, understanding this distinction is crucial for anyone who values kindness, but also wants to be respected. The challenge lies in making sure your kindness is seen as the powerful force it is, and not as something to be taken advantage of. With the right balance, kindness can remain your superpower, not your vulnerability. Next, let's discuss how people tend to exploit kindness, often without even realizing it. When we are consistently kind, it can create an expectation that we will always be available to help, that we will always give, and that we will always put others before ourselves. While this might sound noble, it often leads to exploitation. This is a dangerous cycle, especially when it goes unacknowledged, and when people begin to take more than they give. The core issue here lies in human nature itself. People are naturally inclined to seek the path of least resistance. When they notice someone who is consistently kind and giving, they may start to expect those acts of kindness without considering the emotional toll it may take on the person providing them. This behavior stems from an assumption that the kind person has endless reserves of energy, time, and patience, without a clear understanding of the limits of kindness. As a result, this lack of awareness often translates into taking the kindness of others for granted, leading to imbalances in relationships and eventually disrespect. The exploitation can come in many forms. It could be as subtle as asking for favors without offering anything in return, or as blatant as repeatedly asking for help without acknowledging the emotional and physical toll it may take on the person who is giving. Over time, these actions create a sense of entitlement, where the person benefiting from your kindness no longer feels the need to offer gratitude or reciprocation. They may even come to expect that you will always be there to lend a hand without hesitation or question, regardless of how it affects you. This dynamic can be particularly damaging because it undermines the very purpose of kindness, to foster connection and understanding between people. When kindness is continuously exploited, the person who is giving may begin to feel unappreciated or taken advantage of, which erodes their sense of self-worth. This in turn leads to feelings of disrespect, as the kindness they offer is not being reciprocated or acknowledged in a meaningful way. What often happens is that the kind person becomes exhausted, worn down, and eventually resentful. They begin to feel as though their generosity is being abused, and this can lead to a shift in their attitude. They may pull back, become more guarded, or start to develop negative feelings toward the very people they have been helping. This shift can manifest as frustration, bitterness, or even anger, as they realize that their kindness is not being met with the respect and gratitude they deserve. To protect yourself from being exploited, it's important to set clear boundaries and be mindful of the emotional costs of your kindness. While offering help is admirable, it's crucial to ensure that your kindness is not a one-sided transaction. Establishing boundaries allows you to maintain your own emotional health while still being a compassionate and giving person. When people see that you have limits, they will learn to respect both you and your generosity. In the end, kindness should never be a tool for manipulation or exploitation. It should be a choice, one that comes from a place of genuine care and empathy. But in order for it to be effective and sustainable, it must be met with reciprocity and respect. Without these elements, kindness becomes a commodity to be used and abused, leaving you feeling disrespected and depleted. One of the most important lessons when it comes to maintaining kindness without being disrespected is learning how to set boundaries. Boundaries are essential for self-respect. They are the invisible lines that define how you want to be treated by others and what you will not tolerate. Without boundaries, kindness can quickly become a tool for exploitation, and you may find yourself being taken advantage of by people who expect more than you can offer. Setting boundaries is not an act of cruelty or selfishness. Rather, it is an act of self-preservation. It is a recognition that while you may want to help others, you must also care for yourself. By setting clear limits, you show others that your kindness comes with certain expectations. You let them know that you are willing to help, but only when it doesn't come at the expense of your own well-being. This is crucial in protecting yourself from the negative effects of kindness being taken for granted. When people know that you have boundaries, they will begin to respect them. They will understand that you are not a bottomless well of goodwill, and that your time, energy, and resources are limited. This helps to foster healthier, more balanced relationships, where both parties contribute and appreciate each other's efforts. However, setting boundaries is not always easy, especially for those who are naturally inclined to be kind and giving. It can feel uncomfortable or even confrontational to say no or to limit your involvement in someone else's needs. But by doing so, you not only protect your own emotional health, but you also show others that you respect yourself enough to prioritize your own needs. Boundaries are also important in preventing burnout. Without boundaries, your kindness can quickly become a drain on your resources. You may find yourself constantly giving without receiving the support or recognition you need. Over time, this can lead to exhaustion, frustration, and ultimately, resentment. By setting boundaries, you create space for rest and rejuvenation, ensuring that you have the energy and emotional strength to continue being kind in a healthy way. Moreover, boundaries help clarify expectations in relationships. Without them, people may assume that you will always be available or willing to help, regardless of the circumstances. This creates an imbalance in the relationship, where one person's needs are prioritized over the others. By setting boundaries, you communicate that your kindness is not unconditional and that you expect respect and understanding in return. Ultimately, setting boundaries is an act of empowerment. It allows you to maintain your integrity while still being a kind and giving person. It ensures that your kindness is a positive force in your life and the lives of others, rather than something that leaves you feeling disrespected or drained. With clear boundaries, kindness can flourish without compromising your self-respect. A common consequence of being overly kind is the unintended message it sends to others, that you will always be there to help and they need not give back in return. Over time, this can lead to a sense of entitlement, where people expect your kindness as a given without offering anything in exchange. This sense of entitlement can breed disrespect, as individuals come to believe that they are entitled to your time, energy, and resources without acknowledging the effort it takes to offer kindness in the first place. When kindness is met with entitlement, it can become a burden rather than a gift. This sense of entitlement undermines the value of your kindness, making it feel like an obligation rather than a choice. Entitlement breeds disrespect because it negates the reciprocity that is necessary in any healthy relationship. In order for kindness to flourish, there must be a balance between giving and receiving. When one party constantly takes without offering anything in return, it creates an unhealthy power dynamic that leads to resentment and a breakdown in mutual respect.
This entitlement can manifest in many forms. It could be someone constantly asking for favors without considering your needs. Or it could be an individual who expects you to drop everything to help them, even when it's inconvenient for you. Over time, these behaviors can make you feel like you are being taken for granted or that your kindness is being exploited. The problem with entitlement is that it turns kindness into a transactional relationship where the giver is expected to give without question and the receiver expects to always receive. This removes the genuine spirit of kindness, which is rooted in voluntary, selfless giving. When entitlement takes over, kindness loses its meaning and becomes just another expectation, which leads to frustration and disrespect. To prevent entitlement from taking hold, it's important to maintain your sense of self-worth and to remind others that kindness should be appreciated, not expected. This is where boundaries come into play once again. By setting limits on what you are willing to give and ensuring that your kindness is reciprocated, you prevent others from assuming that your generosity is a never-ending resource. In the end, kindness should be a choice, not an obligation. When it becomes an expectation, it breeds entitlement and disrespect. By staying mindful of how your kindness is received and ensuring that it is appreciated, you protect yourself from being disrespected and taken advantage of. Another reason why your kindness might lead to disrespect is because it challenges the self-perception of others. Many people are used to thinking of themselves as independent, self-sufficient, or even superior to others. When someone offers kindness without an agenda or expectation of return, it can feel like an affront to their sense of autonomy or pride. They may perceive your kindness as a sign that they are incapable or inferior, leading to feelings of discomfort or defensiveness. In this way, your kindness may actually trigger insecurity in others. They might feel embarrassed by your acts of generosity, especially if they pride themselves on their ability to do it all themselves. When confronted with kindness, people might react by pushing back or even disrespecting the person offering it as a way to protect their self image. Instead of accepting help with gratitude, they may push it away or dismiss it entirely. This reaction can stem from their own fear of appearing weak or reliant on others, which they equate with a loss of control. What complicates matters is that many people don't always recognize this underlying dynamic. They may simply feel irritated, uncomfortable, or annoyed by your kindness without realizing that it's actually their own internal conflict that's driving these feelings. This creates a situation where your kindness, which was meant to build connection, inadvertently creates tension. The person may react in a way that appears disrespectful or dismissive, which only deepens the misunderstanding. Furthermore, those who are already struggling with feelings of inadequacy or low self esteem might interpret your kindness as a judgment of their worth. Instead of seeing your kindness as a form of care, they may view it as a subtle critique of their own shortcomings. As a result, they might respond by disrespecting you or rejecting your generosity as a way to protect themselves from feelings of vulnerability or shame. This dynamic can be especially challenging when you're offering kindness to someone who is dealing with their own internal struggles. In these cases, it's essential to approach kindness with even more sensitivity and awareness. Rather than pushing kindness onto someone who might not be ready to accept it, it's important to gauge their emotional state and be mindful of how your actions might affect them. At the same time, it's also necessary to recognize that your kindness is not responsible for their insecurities. The key here is understanding that your kindness is an expression of your values, not a reflection of someone else's worth. Even if your kindness is not received as you intended, you should not take it personally. In many cases, the disrespect or discomfort that arises is not a reflection of your actions, but rather a reflection of the other person's own internal conflicts. By acknowledging this, you can maintain your sense of self-respect while continuing to offer kindness in ways that are thoughtful and considerate. Ultimately, while kindness can challenge others' self-perception, it is important to remember that it's not your responsibility to manage how others see themselves. The goal is to offer kindness in a way that is respectful of both your own boundaries and their emotional state, allowing you to maintain integrity without being disrespected. Kindness, if not approached thoughtfully, can lead to misplaced expectations, both for you and for the people around you. When kindness is extended without clear communication or understanding of its impact, it can create a situation where others expect continuous support, help, or even intervention without realizing the emotional or practical toll it takes on you. This unspoken expectation can lead to disrespect, especially when the kindness offered becomes a burden rather than a benefit. In many cases, when we act out of pure kindness, we do so without considering the long term effects on ourselves or others. We may give freely and selflessly, believing that the gesture will be appreciated or reciprocated. However, over time, this can create an imbalance. The recipient of your kindness may come to see it as a regular offering rather than an act of generosity. This can eventually lead to resentment or frustration when they realize that their expectations have become unrealistic or unfair. This misalignment of expectations can also occur when the kindness offered is misunderstood or misinterpreted. Sometimes people mistake your kindness for something more, such as an obligation or a way to earn your favor. They may start to believe that your actions are meant to yield something in return, even if you have no such expectation. This misunderstanding can set the stage for disappointment and disrespect, as they feel entitled to something that was never promised or intended. Additionally, when kindness is not balanced with honesty and open communication, it can lead to resentment. You may offer help or support without expressing your own needs or limitations. And in doing so, you might create an environment where others fail to appreciate your effort. Over time, this imbalance can cause you to feel undervalued or taken for granted, leading to a situation where your kindness is met with a lack of respect. When your acts of kindness go unacknowledged or unappreciated, it becomes easy to feel disrespected. The key to preventing this from happening is to ensure that your kindness is aligned with your values and boundaries. Being kind should not mean sacrificing your own needs or well being. If your actions lead to an imbalance or an expectation of continuous giving, it's essential to reassess the situation and communicate openly about the impact of your kindness. Misplaced expectations often arise from a lack of clear boundaries or mutual understanding. Without these key elements, kindness can quickly turn into a cycle of giving without receiving, which can lead to feelings of frustration and disrespect. Setting clear boundaries and communicating your needs can help ensure that kindness remains a positive force in your life and that it is respected by those around you. In the end, kindness should always come from a place of authenticity and self awareness. By ensuring that your acts of kindness are in alignment with your values, you can prevent the development of unrealistic expectations and preserve the respect that should accompany your goodwill. Kindness, by its very nature, makes you vulnerable. It requires you to open up emotionally, to risk rejection, and to give without guarantee of return. While this vulnerability is a necessary part of human connection, it also exposes you to potential criticism and judgment. In a world that often rewards cynicism and self interest, showing vulnerability through kindness can lead to being disrespected or taken advantage of. The vulnerability of kindness is especially evident when you offer help to someone who may not appreciate it or when your intentions are misunderstood. In these situations, you may feel as though your generosity is being used against you, leading to hurt feelings and disillusionment. The very act of putting yourself in a position where you're exposed emotionally can make you more susceptible to being disrespected. When you show kindness, you are essentially opening yourself up to the possibility of rejection or even ridicule. Some people may view your kindness as a sign of weakness or manipulation, assuming that there must be a hidden agenda behind your actions. This skepticism can lead to disrespect as people dismiss your good intentions in favor of their own preconceptions. In these moments, your kindness becomes a target for criticism rather than a strength to be admired. In addition, when you are consistently kind and put yourself out there for others, you may encounter people who criticize you for being too nice or too soft. These judgments often come from individuals who do not understand the value of genuine kindness or who are threatened by it. Rather than acknowledging your vulnerability as an act of courage, they may dismiss it as a flaw or a weakness, leading to disrespect. The vulnerability that comes with kindness is also amplified in situations where you have been hurt or betrayed. If you continue to offer kindness after being taken advantage of, you may find yourself becoming more vulnerable to further disrespect or exploitation. The emotional toll of repeatedly extending kindness only to have it rejected or taken for granted can lead to feelings of bitterness and distrust. Despite the potential for criticism and disrespect, the vulnerability of kindness is not something to be feared. It is a testament to your emotional strength and willingness to connect with others. However, it's essential to recognize that your vulnerability should be protected and it should not be used as an excuse for others to disrespect you. By maintaining boundaries and practicing self awareness, you can protect your emotional well being while still embracing the vulnerability that comes with kindness. In the end, vulnerability is an integral part of kindness. While it opens you up to potential criticism or rejection, it also allows you to form deeper, more meaningful connections. By embracing vulnerability in a balanced way, you can navigate the complexities of kindness without allowing it to become a source of disrespect. One of the key components of maintaining respect while being kind is reciprocity. Reciprocity is the idea that kindness should be a mutual exchange where both parties benefit from the relationship. Without reciprocity, kindness becomes one sided and leads to imbalance and disrespect. When you offer kindness without expecting anything in return, people may begin to take it for granted, assuming that you will always give without question. This lack of reciprocity can lead to feelings of being disrespected as your efforts are not acknowledged or appreciated. Reciprocity and kindness ensures that relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding. It creates a sense of balance where both parties contribute to the relationship in meaningful ways. When kindness is not reciprocated, it can create a power imbalance where one person is always giving while the other is always taking. This dynamic can lead to feelings of resentment and disrespect as the giver may feel unappreciated or taken advantage of. The absence of reciprocity can also cause the giver to feel emotionally drained. When kindness is not met with gratitude or acknowledgement, it can become exhausting. The giver may begin to feel that their efforts are not yielding the desired outcomes, leading to frustration and disillusionment. Over time, this can erode the respect that should exist in the relationship.
In healthy relationships, Kindness is a two-way street. Both parties contribute to the dynamic, offering support and care when needed. Reciprocity helps maintain respect by ensuring that both individuals feel valued and appreciated. Without it, kindness becomes a one-sided transaction where one person is always giving while the other takes. Reciprocity also ensures that kindness remains sustainable. When it is reciprocated, it reinforces the idea that kindness is not a limited resource, but something that can be replenished through mutual care. This creates a positive cycle where both individuals feel empowered and respected. In the absence of reciprocity, it is important to reassess the relationship and communicate your needs. If kindness is not being reciprocated, it may be time to establish boundaries or to reevaluate the dynamic. By ensuring that kindness is mutual, you can prevent it from becoming a source of disrespect. Ultimately, reciprocity is essential to maintaining respect in relationships. Without it, kindness can easily become a tool for exploitation, leading to feelings of being taken for granted and disrespected. By fostering mutual care and respect, kindness becomes a positive force that strengthens relationships rather than undermines them. There is a common saying that a person can be too nice, and in some situations, this may be true. Being overly accommodating or excessively kind can lead to a lack of boundaries and the erosion of self-respect. When you are too nice, you may start to prioritize the needs of others over your own, to the detriment of your emotional well-being. While kindness is a virtue, being too nice can lead to exploitation and ultimately disrespect. Being too nice can manifest in a variety of ways. It might mean saying yes to every request, even when it's inconvenient or harmful to you. It might involve sacrificing your own needs, desires, or boundaries in order to make others happy. This pattern of excessive kindness can create a situation where people come to expect that you will always put them first, leaving little room for your own needs or personal space. The problem with being too nice is that it often comes at the expense of your own sense of self-worth. When you are constantly putting others' needs before your own, you may begin to feel invisible or unimportant. You may even start to feel resentment toward those you are trying to help, as they may not appreciate or acknowledge the sacrifices you are making. This lack of appreciation can lead to feelings of disrespect, as your kindness is taken for granted or exploited. In some cases, being too nice can also lead to manipulative behavior from others. People may begin to view your kindness as a tool for getting what they want. Rather than respecting your generosity, they may see it as an opportunity to take advantage of you. This exploitation can take the form of constant demands for your time, resources, or emotional support, with little regard for your own needs. To avoid being too nice, it's essential to establish boundaries and prioritize self-care. Kindness should not come at the expense of your own well-being. By learning to say no, setting limits, and asserting your own needs, you can maintain your kindness without becoming a target for exploitation. Being too nice can also undermine your credibility and assertiveness. When you are constantly accommodating others, people may begin to see you as someone who lacks strength or conviction. This can lead to a lack of respect, as others may perceive you as someone who is easily manipulated or controlled. Ultimately, being too nice is a pattern of behavior that can lead to self-neglect, exploitation, and disrespect. By finding a balance between kindness and self-respect, you can avoid falling into the trap of being too nice and ensure that your kindness is met with respect and appreciation. Finally, the consistency with which you show kindness can also play a role in how it is perceived. While being kind on occasion can be seen as a virtue, being consistently kind can sometimes lead to people expecting that behavior as the norm. This can lead to feelings of entitlement or even manipulation, as others come to rely on your kindness without considering the emotional cost it may take on you. Consistency in kindness can create a pattern that others may begin to take for granted. When you are consistently kind, you are essentially setting an expectation that you will always be available and willing to help. While this is admirable, it can also lead to burnout or exploitation, as people may begin to assume that your kindness is a given. They may not recognize the effort it takes to be kind every day, and instead take it for granted. This creates an environment where kindness is no longer a gift but an entitlement. People may begin to view your kindness as a baseline expectation rather than something extraordinary. As a result, your efforts may go unnoticed or unappreciated, leading to feelings of disrespect. Consistency in kindness can also make you vulnerable to being manipulated. When people know that you will always respond kindly, they may begin to take advantage of your generosity. This can lead to a situation where your kindness is exploited for personal gain, rather than being reciprocated in a meaningful way. Maintain respect while being consistently kind. It's important to find ways to ensure that your kindness is met with gratitude and reciprocity. By setting boundaries and being mindful of the impact of your actions, you can ensure that your kindness remains a positive force in your life and the lives of others. Being consistent in kindness does not mean sacrificing your own well-being or tolerating disrespect. It means finding a balance where your kindness is appreciated, not exploited. By practicing self-awareness and ensuring that your kindness is reciprocated, you can maintain the integrity of your relationships and preserve the respect you deserve. In the end, consistency in kindness is a beautiful quality, but it must be tempered with boundaries, self-respect, and reciprocity. By finding the right balance, you can ensure that your kindness is respected and valued rather than taken for granted. In conclusion, kindness is one of the most powerful tools we have to foster connection and create a positive impact on the world around us. However, as we've discussed today, kindness is often misunderstood, and if not managed carefully, it can lead to disrespect, exploitation, and burnout. It is essential that we balance kindness with self-respect, set clear boundaries, and communicate openly with others about our needs and limitations. By doing so, we can protect our kindness and ensure that it remains a source of strength rather than a vulnerability.